Let's discuss something on the Entertainment Guy channel here that I think is worthy of discussion because we're all talking about Mandalorian. And we're also looking at The Rise of Skywalker coming out very, very soon. So The Rise of Skywalker means we're going to have this argument again. Rey's too strong. Rey just immediately knew how to use the Force. That's ridiculous. And then she fought Kylo, and Kylo's a trained Jedi, even though he really wasn't. Think about it. Kylo was being trained by Luke. Was he fully trained? I don't think so, because he was still being trained by Luke. Now, at the time that Rey fought him, he had just been shot in the gut by that crossbow of Chewie's, which probably hurt a lot. That's why there was blood all over the snow on the ground. He was bleeding pretty profusely, and thus the reason why it took him 2 swipes to down Finn, who should have been dead. I agree with that part. But then he fights Rey, and he's obviously not at 100%. And he's not... At no point is it established that Kylo's really a Jedi other than having the lightsaber and being really kind of angry, so that makes him Sithy. He's not a Sith either. He was a Knight of Ren. Now, we're going into Episode 9, and there's some hints that they're going to talk to us about why Rey is so strong with the Force and fill us in on which family line she's a part of. I have always felt that she's somehow related to Luke Skywalker, that would be the way this would work. That Kylo Ren would be from the Solo family, and that she would be from the Skywalker family. Now, let's go back to Luke Skywalker, because we all love the original Star Wars trilogy, but let's just look at it from a movie standpoint. He's a farm boy. Grows up, knows nothing about the Force. He knows this guy Ben Kenobi. He's this weirdo out in the desert who hangs around. Hey, Luke, what's going on? I didn't have any idea that Obi-Wan's been watching him and making sure he's okay. He's trained for about 30 seconds on the Millennium Falcon by Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's told that there's some kind of mystical Force thing, and he puts on a helmet and goes, hey, just reach out with your feelings. And Luke does it, and he has this invisible fight. And then Obi-Wan dies before imparting any other wisdom on him. And then he just blows up the Death Star because he's got Obi-Wan's voice in his head saying, don't worry about what your computer tells you, just go with your head and your gut, and the Force will tell you what to do. So this was the ultimate in how the hell did he do that moments, because he didn't even know what the Force was at the start of the movie, and at the end he's like, alright, yeah, no, I blew up the Death Star. And I hit that port that trained veterans of the military couldn't hit. So they go to Hoth. Empire Strikes Back starts. He gets knocked out by a Wampa. He wakes up in the cave. He uses the Force to retrieve the lightsaber. At no point had he been shown how to use the Force to move a lightsaber through the air into his hand. At no point in Star Wars is he told that this is possible, to move objects through the air just by the Force. Right? So for people now, if Empire came out now, you'd have people coming out going, did you see the way that he moved that? Nobody trained him to do that. There's no Jedis around, so it's not like in between Star Wars and Empire he got trained, because on Hoth, Obi-Wan, while he's dropping dead in the snow, goes, hey, why don't you go off to Dagobah and see Yoda? And he's like, that sounds like an idea if I don't die. So he doesn't die. He goes to Dagobah and he trains for about 20 minutes on screen. I'm saying 20 minutes, but it's really not much. And he lifts up a couple of rocks and he stands on one hand, and he levitates R2-D2, and then he sees the future, and his friends are in pain, and everything just falls down. He doesn't see far enough into the future to see that he'll find out Vader's his dad, and he's going to have to watch him die, but he sees that his friends are in pain. And Yoda's kind of a dick about it, like, yeah, they're in pain, so what? Come on, we got training to do. Which you understand from Yoda's perspective, and yet, after 20 minutes of training, Luke's like, all right, now I'm out of here. So he's ready to leave. And Obi-Wan's like, no, wait, don't give in to hate, blah, blah, blah. Hate leads to the dark side. So he goes to Cloud City, and he loses a fight to Darth Vader. Loses his hand. Which makes sense, because Darth Vader is an extremely powerful Jedi. But think about this. Darth Vader chops through people like crazy, so he's toying with Luke in this movie. And there are parts of Empire where he probably could have offed Luke. Now, you could turn around and say, ha, see? That's why the Rey fight with Kylo doesn't make any sense. If anybody wants to say that Kylo Ren could have survived a fight with Darth Vader. Go right on ahead. I don't see that Kylo Ren would have lasted more than about 20 seconds with Vader unless Vader knew it was his grandkid. That kid's not lasting more than about 20 seconds against Vader. It's just not happening. Watch the end of Rogue One. The end of Rogue One tells you just how deadly Darth Vader was when he wanted to be. Now, after Empire, he makes a lightsaber. They don't talk about how he finds about kyber crystals, how to make his own lightsaber. And this is in movies. So if you're going to say, well, it's all in the books and the comics in between. No, we're just looking at movies, because if I tell you there's stuff about Rey in books, people are going to go, well, we don't see that on screen, so it doesn't count. And they're right. They're 100% right. So he makes a lightsaber and he goes to Tatooine like, I'm going to save everybody. He does the Force choke thing. The weird thing is, the Force choke thing to me is kind of a dark side thing, to be honest. So the way that Luke's carrying himself in Return of the Jedi, you can kind of see how he could be tempted by the dark side. And in the original expanded universe, he did actually join the Emperor. The cloned Emperor, the resurrected Emperor, made him his right-hand man. To where Luke actually kneels and says, my father's destiny is my own. And then a fully trained Leia has to come, fight her brother, and save him from the clutches of Palpatine. So that's in the comics. And that's the original expanded universe. So again, comics you can't use here. So he makes a lightsaber, which nobody taught him how to do. And he goes to Tatooine to save everybody, which he does. Then goes back to Dagobah. Yoda dies. He didn't see through the Force that Yoda was at death's door, or that Yoda didn't have much time left. No more training, says Yoda. That's it. Your training's done. So you levitated a rock. You levitated R2-D2. You could not levitate your ship. You couldn't levitate the X-Wing. I did that. But you're trained. You're good. And then it's like, I'm a Jedi. Now think about this for a second. So I want you to think about this for a second. Luke doesn't say, so I am a Jedi. He just walks out. Yoda dies. Luke walks out. Luke wouldn't have known he needed to go fight Vader. Luke would have had no idea. Luke would have went, I'm a Jedi. All right, I'm the last Jedi. And Yoda wouldn't have said anything to him. So that's kind of strange, isn't it? So Yoda rolls over, no, he's your father, you gotta go fight your father. And then it's discovered that Leia's his sister, that again, if it wasn't for this magical Force ghost and all this magical stuff, he wouldn't have known. So he finds out, and then he goes and kills his dad indirectly. He doesn't actually kill Vader. Vader dies saving him from the Emperor, but if he hadn't been there, that wouldn't happen. So he kind of indirectly kills his dad, and he's a Jedi. That's it. That's his training. Now look at the prequels. Look at all the training these kids go through from when they're little kids until they're adults, and they have to go through all this, and it's so much. Now, people can argue, well, think about it. He's stronger in the Force than others. Okay, so why can't Rey be? If Luke Skywalker is, as a farm boy, just as strong with the Force because of who his dad is, well, why can't Rey be just as strong with the Force? And we still don't know the lineage for Rey. It's like when Kylo goes, they were filthy junk traders. And she goes, yeah, no, they were nobody. Everybody went, all right, so that's that. And you know what's funny is I was okay with that. I was okay with that because it didn't tell me whether or not those filthy junk traders were strong with the Force. That's not how that works. You've got to think there's people in this universe who are strong with it and have no idea. Just think they're lucky, or just think that they've got some kind of precognition with stuff, and they don't really think, I'm strong with the Force. Because with Luke, he had no idea what the Force was, even though he was in a universe that had been kind of ruled by Jedi Council until 20 years before that point. He had no idea. Now, his uncle wouldn't have told him anything about it. You got to think Aunt Beru would have said something over the years. I mean, Uncle Owen was kind of a jerk, but Beru, you would think, would have said at some point, you know, we need to talk about this, your dad stuff. You don't want to be your dad. But that's where things get strange. So right now with the Mandalorian, we're looking at Baby Yoda. Everybody loves Baby Yoda, and I love Baby Yoda. He's clearly inherently strong with the Force. He has a Force ability that is rivaling anything we've seen in the Star Wars universe. That being said, there is not the level of complaining about Yoda, the baby version, being really, really strong with the Force. But the complaints about Rey seem to be one of she got this Force power way too fast, way too easily, and yet the argument can be made about Luke. The argument can be made about the infant version of Yoda that's in the new series. We have to go by what we see on screen. We can't go by all the other books and all the other lore that us Star Wars nerds may very well have gone through. And it is strange when you think about it. Who taught Luke that you could reach out with your feelings and make things move? Now, if you're going to say, well, he probably figured that out on his own. Okay, well, why can't Rey have figured anything out on her own? Right? Force Awakens, I could die here. All right, let's see if something works here. I'm going to throw something at the wall. Let's see if this works. I'll just try to control somebody's thoughts on something. See if that works. I don't know. I don't know what'll work. Now, if she said that out loud, it would sound ridiculous, right? So you're not going to have that out loud in there. But yeah, she just inherently knows. And if the Force is there to be a symbiont with you, using Qui-Gon's words, then maybe the Force protects you as well. Maybe there's situations where you should die and the Force is like, move out of the way, moron. And maybe that's kind of how it works. And maybe with Rey, maybe that's what it is. The wonderful thing about Star Wars is that we've seen it have its downbeats, and I would say that the Phantom Menace was the ultimate downbeat, and it that whole trilogy in general, the prequels were from almost unwatchable to what are they thinking, and what we're seeing now, and I think with the Mandalorian, and I think with the new trilogy, and I know there's people who hated The Last Jedi. I like that it tried something different. I didn't necessarily think it all worked, and I've mentioned that in recent videos where I've talked about Star Wars. I didn't think that it all worked, but I think it worked well enough. That the movie as a whole, I think it does fit in with that universe, and I'm anxious to see where they go. Now, apparently Lucasfilm, according to reports, isn't really entirely sure where things go after Episode 9. I would think that after Episode 9, you can do standalone movies for new characters. I think the ultimate Star Wars test of time is going to be whether or not people are really interested in the expanded universe the way that those of us who've been Star Wars nerds for a very long time are interested in it. So like what they did with Rogue One. Well, Rogue One kind of played it safe too, because you still had Vader in there, you still had R2-D2 and C-3PO, you still had familiar ships, familiar settings, and it really felt like it was just a way to stitch Part 3 and Part 4, Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars A New Hope together. Are there actually people out there that when you get into the expanded, and it doesn't have to be laser sword fighting. You don't have to have Jedis out there fighting. It can be in the Star Wars universe. There could be a whole movie set in the Spice Mines of Kessel that doesn't mention Jedi, doesn't mention the Force. But could that work? And I think where we're all arguing now amongst ourselves about whether or not Mary Sues are this horrible thing. Mary Sues have been a thing in movies for as long as movies have existed. Hearing, oh, it's a Mary Sue, and when you look up what they are, you're thinking, so there's a lot of those, and there are a ton. And it's just as obvious as when it was argued that in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford's character, Indiana Jones, your big title character, had absolutely nothing to do with what happens in that movie. What he did made no difference to the finale whatsoever. None. He's just there for the ride, and in the end, the Nazis still got the Ark. They opened it, and they died. And really, Indianapolis is just along for the ride in that movie. So I do think that there's a portion of the public, I think there are people who go into movies just looking to complain. I do. I think there's people who go to watch a movie, especially in the case of Star Wars, where they're watching something that's beloved by a lot, and they're going in going, all right, this isn't going to be very good. This is stupid. This is stupid. And so they'll find any reason they can to decry it and say it's moronic. But it's weird because if you watch New Hope, so forget Empire for a second. Empire, we can all agree, is fantastic. But if you look at just New Hope as a standalone, and if the movie had never been a huge hit, and if that movie hadn't spawned all these other movies, it's okay. It's a good enough film, but it's not fantastic. And Luke Skywalker is a very shallow character in New Hope. Just take out Empire, take out Return of the Jedi, and just look at Luke Skywalker as a character. He's a farm boy. He goes off with the crazy old wizard, comes back to find his uncle and his aunt are burned. He's like, well, guess I'm going to go fight the Empire. Goes and fights the Empire, blows up the Death Star. And that's it. Crazy old wizard dies along the way, says something about the Force. You fight with the blast shield down, and you get laser shot, and then you flick a couple of lasers away with your sword. There really isn't any depth to that character at all. And the depth that's there with a lot of the original characters, I think, comes from our memories of them. And from a lot of the expanded universe stuff that happened. And just because it was a cultural phenomenon. We loved them as a cultural phenomenon. And I think that a lot of the criticism, and it where it came up for me too, was as a horror movie fan when Evil Dead was reimagined in 2013. And it wasn't the same movie that it was in 1983, nor should it have been. Different characters. Could have been in the exact same universe. I think it was in the same universe. I always thought that a sequel where she runs into an old, haggard Ash Williams would have been great, but obviously they can't do that now after the Ash vs. Evil Dead series. But again, I thought a lot of people went in just looking to find fault. Friday the 13th. People go in looking to find fault. Friday the 13th, the original, you want to go and find Citizen Kane in that? Go right on ahead. It's not a good movie. And I say that as a movie. As a slasher flick, it's fine. But in terms of putting it up against other movies, it's not very good. The remake was pretty solid. There was some stuff that was rushed, but it's a slasher flick. It does what it does. It is what it is. So there you go. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Has the internet calmed down about Rey, or is this going to be a thing when Episode 9 comes out? Because honestly, to me, Luke Skywalker, that's it on the board. That's the character through 3 movies, through about 7 hours of screen time. But let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.